The millionaire judge demands medal from General Negra while a beggar woman watches. The sun dipped low over the sprawling city, casting long shadows. In the midst of opulence, Judge Margaret Sinclair stood like a queen atop her throne. The courtroom buzzed with hushed gasps and murmurs. Everyone knew her as the iron-fisted judge, relentless in her pursuit of justice, a woman whose decisions molded lives with the flick of her pen. And today she demanded a medal from a man once heralded a hero, General Samuel Negra. But Samuel, once lauded for his valor, now faced scorn. The crowd felt the tension crackling, like electricity in the air. Margaret's gaze was sharp, cutting through the cadre of reporters, snapping photos, eager to capture the headline, "The millionaire judge demanding a medal from a disgraced general." It was a story ripe for the tabloids, the kind that thrived on scandal. Yet amidst this spectacle, a figure sat on the fringes. A beggar woman. Eleanor, with her tattered coat and sunken eyes, watched intently. Her presence felt almost surreal. Why was she here? The crowd barely acknowledged her, lost in the fray of wealth and power. But Eleanor saw something others didn't. The ceremony buzzed forward, but Margaret's heart raced, entwined in the memories of her broken family that refused to fade. She clasped her hands together, feeling the uneven rhythm of her heartbeat echoing her fears. Was she to be seen merely as an extension of her status, disconnected from the grief that had shaped her? In that moment of vulnerability, she glanced toward Eleanor, who remained observant, her eyes glimmering with understanding. "Bring him forth," Margaret commanded, her voice strong. But beneath that steel exterior, her chest tightened. Samuel stepped into view, his brow creased with the weight of the past that refused to let him go. The ceremony paused, breaths held in anticipation. What would Margaret say? What would she decide? Just as the silence thickened, Eleanor shifted forward, a reluctant wave breaking the tension. "Wait!" she called, her voice trembling yet firm. The eyes of the crowd turned, startled at the interruption. "What do you want?" Margaret snapped, her patience fraying. Yet something about Eleanor's gaze held her back. "I know you both," Eleanor breathed, each word a delicate thread drawing them together. "You two, your pasts are tangled. You need to face it." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Margaret felt her throat tighten as Samuel's expression shifted from shock to raw fear. They had buried their connections deep, but here stood the reminder. "What do you mean?" Samuel asked, his voice faltering, the bravado gone. Eleanor's exposure of their intertwined history felt like a lightning strike. Margaret's memories surged back, blinkered voices and harsh realities crashing into her thoughts. Would they confront their past together, or allow their secrets to devour them alive? Despair clashed with a flicker of hope. Could they find redemption in each other? Their eyes met, vulnerability and uncertainty knitting the space between them. "Consider what you are willing to sacrifice for connection," Eleanor whispered, her heartfelt plea cutting through the spectacle. In that charged silence, Margaret and Samuel stood at a precipice, wondering what they might unveil. Honor or shame? Would they embrace this unexpected bond, or would their haunted pasts tear them apart? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Just take a quick look at the red button down there to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming your way. And since you're here, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every incredible person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Eleanor's plea hung in the air, charged with anticipation. The crowd whispered among themselves, caught in the web of her words. Margaret and Samuel exchanged glances, their lives teetering on the edge of revelation. But before they could gather their thoughts, the courtroom door flung open with a crash, and a figure rushed in. It was a man, wild-eyed and frantic. He was disheveled, clothes torn and dirt-streaked, as if he'd run through chaos to get here. "Stop! You can't do this!" His voice boomed, startling everyone into silence. Margaret's heart raced. "Who are you?" she demanded, her composure fraying. The man took a deep breath, hands trembling. "I'm Jacob. I know the truth about you both." The weight of his words sank like a stone. The crowd gasped. Samuel stepped back, eyes wide. "What truth?" he stammered, every ounce of bravado draining away. Jacob looked around, desperate for attention. Years ago, there was a cover-up, a mission gone wrong. You both were involved. He locked eyes with Samuel first, then turned to Margaret. "And there's something you need to understand. You are not who you think you are." Margaret's mouth went dry. "What do you mean?" "It's about your family," Jacob pressed, the urgency in his voice rising. "Your father and Samuel, they weren't just soldiers. They were partners, and they betrayed each other in the worst way. And you, Margaret, you're not really a Sinclair." The courtroom erupted into chaos. Shocked murmurs filled the air as everyone processed the implications of Jacob's words. Margaret felt her legs tremble, the ground beneath her shifting. "That's not possible." But the certainty in Jacob's eyes told a different story. "Your mother, she hid it from you. You were adopted, raised to wear a name that was never yours." His voice cracked with emotion. "They took the truth to their graves, and now it's back to haunt you both." Margaret's heart raced, confusion muddling her thoughts. The identity she had built her life around began to unravel like a thread. She felt Samuel's gaze piercing through her. "Is that true?" he whispered, fear creeping into his voice. "What was your father's secret?" Eleanor, watching from her place, saw the pain in Margaret's eyes and felt a flicker of compassion. But she wasn't sure how to help. Samuel's face was pale, his fear almost palpable. "Jacob, please get to the point," Samuel snapped, desperation rising. Jacob stepped forward, his voice trembling with gravitas. "Your father, Margaret, he made a deal, one that led to the death of good men. You need to confront the legacy he left behind." The air thickened with tension, truth vibrating in the room like a taut wire, ready to snap. Margaret's chest tightened, a knot forming as her world tilted dangerously. "What else?" she gasped, dread creeping into her voice. "I have proof," Jacob declared, and from his pocket he pulled out a weathered file. "Documents, old photographs, things you need to see." Gasps echoed through the crowd as he held out the file. A weighty revelation bundled in paper. Margaret's hands shook. "No." "Yes," Jacob insisted. "You have to see them. It's the only way to understand the path you're on." Samuel's eyes darted between the file and Margaret, the past crashing over them like a tidal wave. The scandal, the betrayal, everything they'd built their lives upon was about to come crumbling down. Would they have the strength to face the pain together? Or would they choose isolation, letting their dark legacy tear them apart? The room held its breath, waiting for the revelation that might change everything. In that moment, the stakes were raised. Who were they? Really? What lay beneath the masks they wore? As they waited for the truth to unfold, an unsettling silence enveloped the courtroom, weighted with unanswered questions. The air was thick with tension, a storm brewing in that crowded courtroom. Margaret's heart raced as she stared at the old file Jacob held out, her mind spinning with possibilities. But just as she was about to take a step forward, a sudden crash erupted from the back of the room. A man burst through the doors, white as a ghost, eyes wide with terror. "Stop! You shouldn't be doing this!" he shouted, his voice echoing against the walls. It was Tom, a clerk from the courthouse, and he stumbled into the spotlight like a deer caught in the headlights. "What now?" Samuel muttered to himself, disbelief washing over him. Margaret rubbed her temples, trying to quell the unease swelling in her chest. "Just what do you want?" she demanded, frustration leaking into her tone. Tom glanced around, panting heavily. His hands shook and his voice quavered. "You need to know, this isn't just about your fathers. It's worse. There's someone else involved." Heads turned and whispers rippled through the crowd. The murmur of shock hung in the air, heavy and palpable. "What do you mean?" Eleanor asked, stepping forward with cautious curiosity. Back when they were in the military together, before everything went down, they had a partner, someone who has been pulling strings for years, Tom said, his voice rising. "Her name is Clara. She was your mother, Margaret. But that's not all. I've seen the documents. It was a dark operation, and they all covered for each other." Margaret's mind reeled. "No, that can't be true. My mother would never." Her voice trailed off, the weight of his words penetrating her tightly held beliefs. "Yes, Clara was involved in something terrible, Margaret. She wasn't just a victim. She made choices that changed everything." Pain creased Tom's brow, and his next words twisted like a knife. "Your real father is not who you think, and Samuel, you were set up. They betrayed you both." Shockwaves rippled through the courtroom. Margaret's knees nearly buckled as Samuel's face blanched, realization dawning in his eyes. "What? My father wouldn't—" he faltered, grappling with the possibility of an orchestrated betrayal on all sides. "Look at the photographs!" Tom pressed, pulling out a tattered envelope as he moved toward the judge's bench. "See the truth for yourselves." Just then, a sharp gasp came from the audience. Eleanor staggered back, her face ghostly pale as she stumbled against a row of chairs. "No, this can't be happening," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. Tom tore open the weathered envelope, swiftly flipping through the contents, each photograph more shocking than the last. "Here, look!" He thrust one image into the air, a faded photo of Margaret as a toddler, her eyes wide and innocent, with two soldiers flanking her on either side. It was a family picture, but something felt off. Perched beside her was a striking woman, a dark-haired figure whose presence loomed large. Margaret's breath hitched in her throat. "Who is that?" she gasped, clutching the edge of the bench for support. "That's Clara!" Tom shouted, urgency spilling from his lips. "And she wasn't just protecting you. She was manipulating the truth to let you believe you were safe, while the others carried out the real mission." A collective gasp swept across the courtroom as every eye fixed on the blurred image. Samuel staggered back, disbelief ricocheting between him and Margaret. "I trusted you," he whispered. "You had to know what they were doing." Margaret's heart sank, crushed by the sudden collision of love and betrayal. "Give me those," she demanded, reaching out to grab the documents, but Jacob stepped in front, eyes hard. "Not yet. You need to understand. The truth can break you or set you free." His voice was low, laced with urgency, but it's painful, Margaret glanced at the faces around her. Shock, confusion, whispers of betrayal flying like wild birds. She felt the world crumbling, the ground shifting beneath her feet. Unraveled, she stood at the edge of a chasm, staring into the abyss of her past. What had she been a part of? And who was she really? Behind her, Eleanor trembled, the weight of others, mistakes sinking deep into her bones. She felt lost but hopeful. "What do we do now?" she whispered, fear clinging tightly as they all awaited answers. With uncertainty heavy in the air, Margaret took a deep breath, steeling herself for the truth that was about to unfold. Would they face this together? Or would the fragmented pieces of the past tear them apart forever? The air was thick with tension as Margaret stood at the edge of a chasm, grappling with the fallout of Jacob's revelations. Her heart raced and her hands trembled while she clutched the edge of the bench, absorbing Tom's words. Her entire life, her identity, hanging in uncertainty. The courtroom buzzed with disbelief, but the noise faded into the background, drowning in her own spiraling thoughts. Just then, a piercing scream erupted from the back of the room. It sliced through the chaos like a knife. "No! Stop!" Eleanor shouted, her voice sharp and frantic. Every eye turned, heartbeat speeding as she staggered back, her eyes wide with terror. "What is it?" Samuel demanded, panic tightening his voice. The budding connection with Margaret felt fragile, teetering on a knife's edge. Eleanor's gaze darted around the courtroom, wild and desperate. "It's not just the men. It's Clara. She's alive!" Her words hung in the air, heavy and cutting. A collective gasp echoed, disbelief rippling through the audience. Margaret's breath caught. "What?" she whispered, every ounce of certainty dissolving into confusion. "How could she be alive?" "I saw her last week. She was in town." Eleanor's voice trailed off, trembling. "And she's been watching you. She's connected to all of this. There's so much more." Gasps morphed into low murmurs, waves of shock flooding the room like a tide. Margaret felt the world tilting again. How could this be? Clara, the woman she'd mourned, the ghost of her childhood memories, still alive? It shattered every assumption she had held dear. "What are you talking about?" Tom pressed, eyes narrowing in suspicion. "You can't—" "I know what I saw," Eleanor erupted, her eyes flashing. "And you need to believe me. Margaret, she's not what you think. The documents, they're just the tip of the iceberg." Margaret's heart raced, confusion spiraling into fear. What does she want? Panic laced her words, but before Eleanor could answer, the door to the courtroom flew open again, the hinges squeaking against the weight of a new intrusion. In strode a woman with wild, dark hair and an air of undeniable familiarity. Her eyes locked onto Margaret's, holding a storm of emotions: fear, regret, longing. "Clara?" Margaret breathed, voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, my daughter," Clara said, stepping closer, tension filling every inch of the room. "We need to talk, now!" Shock blanketed the courtroom as the reality of the situation crystallized. Clara's presence shifted the ground beneath them, transforming every whisper in the room into disbelief. Margaret's heart raced, a wild drum echoing the uncertainty. "You left me!" she gasped, tears pooling. In her eyes, "You abandoned me. I did it to protect you." Clara's voice rang with urgency, as though the air around her crackled with electricity. "Everything you've been told, it's a web of lies. They are coming for you, and I've been trying to keep you safe." Margaret felt a wave of emotions crash over her. Shock, betrayal, then a flicker of hope. "But why not tell me? Why hide?" Clara looked deeply into Margaret's eyes, pain etched into her features. Because they would have killed you too. It was never meant to stay buried. I thought I could keep you safe. Shut down the drama, Samuel snapped, anxiety coursing through him. You're putting everyone at risk. Yet the truth hung heavy, unfolding like a dark flower, no longer about medals or judgments, but about survival, secrets, and a mother's sacrifice. As Clara stepped into the light, illuminating the darkness of the lies, the courtroom fell into an unsettling silence, hearts hammering beneath shattered facades. Eleanor's eyes darted between Clara and Margaret, fear and hope colliding. "What do we do now?" she whispered, the question lingering, ripe with possibilities. In that suspended moment, everything became more complicated. Trust had splintered, new alliances formed, and truths lay shrouded in shadows. Would Margaret embrace this unexpected bond, or would the past erode everything again? The silence pulsed with unanswered questions, leaving them all teetering on the brink of a storm. Margaret's heart thudded in her chest, each beat echoing. Clara's presence like a foghorn slicing through the confusion. "You left me," she repeated, the words choking in her throat. Samuel was pale, eyes darting between Margaret and Clara, trying to process a world that just spun off its axis. Clara stepped closer, her expression a mix of regret and fierce determination. "Listen to me," she urged, desperation lacing her voice. "I've spent years watching over you, even when it meant going into hiding. You don't understand the danger you're in." The courtroom buzzed with confusion. Gasps fluttered through the crowd, a symphony of disbelief. Eleanor stood frozen, eyes darting in search of clarity. "What do you mean, danger?" she breathed, her fear palpable. Just then, the heavy courtroom door creaked open again, and in strode a harsh stranger. His black suit clung to him like shadows, and his face was tight with purpose. "Enough," he barked, voice booming like thunder. "You're all in way over your heads." Everyone turned. The man was tall, dark hair slicked back, with the kind of presence that demanded attention. "Who are you?" Margaret demanded, fists clenching at her sides. "Someone you should fear." The stranger's gaze pinned Clara against the wall. "You stirred up a mess beyond your understanding." Margaret's breath hitched sharply. "What mess? Everything is already a mess." "Not yet," he said, his smile chilling. "But it will be, soon." Eleanor blanched, heart racing as dread enveloped her. "What are you talking about?" she stammered. With a quick motion, the man pulled out a sleek phone. "You see, secrets have their way of revealing themselves, especially when they threaten powerful players." He glanced at Clara, a smirk tugging at his lips. "Like Clara here." "Stop!" Clara shouted, anger flaring, but her hands were trembling. Then, without warning, the lights flickered. A sudden crash echoed through the air. Windows shattered, sending a shower of glass raining down. The crowd screamed, ducking for cover. Amidst the chaos, Margaret's heart raced, pounding louder over the panic. "What just happened?" she gasped, scrambling to her feet, eyes wide with shock. "Bomb!" someone yelled, panic clashing against the walls. The stranger moved with purpose, putting himself between Margaret and Clara. "You think this is done?" he panted, his voice low but dangerous. "You have no idea what you're really involved in." Then the unexpected blast sent a wave of heat through the room, knocking everyone off their feet. People tumbled, cries of terror filling the air as debris shifted and rushed through the chaos. Margaret's head spun, confusion and fear blurring her vision. "Clara!" she screamed, reaching out, but the figure was gone, a shadow swallowed by dust. "Get down," Samuel yelled, shielding Margaret with his body. Sweat dripped down his brow, panic in his eyes as he scanned the wreckage. In the next heartbeat, Clara reappeared, bloodied but unbroken, holding something tight in her grip. A small, black device that pulsed ominously in her palm. "This," she gasped, "this is the truth. We need to leave now." As sirens wailed outside and the crowd scrambled to escape, a blinding light enveloped the room. Everything shifted from chaos to silence, like a shocking stillness to mock the storm outside. Margaret's heart pounded, confusion layering every thought. "What did you do?" she whispered, the weight of reality lurching inside her. Clara locked eyes with her, fierce determination shining through fear. "I never meant for this, but they need to know. All of us do." With that, the sunlight flickered again, and then, darkness. Margaret felt a grip on her arm, someone pulling her. "We can't stay," Samuel shouted, urgency igniting his every word. But as they turned to run, an eerie calm washed over them. The alarms blaring felt distant, fading into the background. And just before everything went dark, one last terrifying thought echoed through Margaret's mind. Was Clara truly working to keep them safe? Or had she just unleashed something that could destroy them all? The world spun into uncertainty, leaving whispers of betrayal tangled in shadow. Margaret's heart thundered in her chest, drowning out the chaos around her. She stared at Clara, rage and confusion mixing in her veins. The lights flickered again. Shadows dancing across the courtroom walls like dark spirits. Clara had just dropped a bombshell, and it hung in the air thick with terror. "Please, we need to leave," Clara insisted, clutching the device tightly. Panic flickered in her eyes. The mother Margaret had longed for, now suddenly a mysterious figure. "They won't stop until they get what they want." Samuel, still in shock, glanced at Margaret, scrambling to process everything. "We can't trust her," he said, voice trembling. "She abandoned you once. Why would she care now?" Before anyone could respond, the air shifted again. A loud crash resounded from the back of the room. The stranger in the suit shot a quick glance at Clara and then bolted toward the entrance. But the door swung shut, firmly, locking him in. His eyes widened, filled with calculated fear. "No!" he shouted, panic creeping into his voice. "You've made a terrible mistake. They'll come for you all." Then, as if summoned by his words, the courtroom filled with an unearthly hum. The device in Clara's hand began to glow a bright red, pulsing like a warning beacon. "Clara!" Margaret yelled, the sudden realization that this was no ordinary gadget igniting fear in her gut. "What did you do?" Ignoring Margaret, Clara stared at the latest intrusion, her expression shifting from fear to defiance. "I thought I could hide it. I thought I was protecting you all." Suddenly, the room echoed with a deafening bang. The glowing device exploded in a blinding flash, releasing a wave of energy that knocked everyone off their feet. Time slowed down. Margaret watched in horror as the smoke engulfed the room, swirling like a storm, hiding the truth. When the chaos settled, Margaret struggled to open her eyes, blinking through the dust. The tension hung heavy in the air. A few heads turned towards her as silence descended like a shroud. Clara was on the ground, but her gaze burned with urgency. "You have to understand, Margaret. It was never about betrayal. It was about survival." "Survival?" Samuel spat, voice hoarse and stricken. He stumbled to his feet, rage boiling beneath the surface. "You've risked everything!" And in that moment, another figure emerged from the haze. A tall man with familiar features. Obscured by the smoke, but distinct enough. Margaret's breath caught in her throat. "Dad?" she whispered, disbelief coursing through her, crashing against every wall she had built. He stepped into the light, the chaos around them seemingly forgotten. "It's time for the truth," he said, and everything shifted again. The weight of the past hung in the air, curling around them like smoke. The courtroom fell into a collective gasp, voices rising into a chorus of shock. "You shouldn't be here," Clara screamed, her voice trembling. "They'll kill you!" "Kill me?" he replied, a smirk curling on his lips that sent a chill down Margaret's spine. "They wanted me gone long ago, but they never found me, did they?" Margaret's entire world flipped. "You faked your death?" she asked, each word laced with fury. "You left us to believe all these years I did it for you, so you'd be safe from this madness," he shouted back, anger and desperation mingling in the air like a violent storm. The truth slammed into her, raw and unyielding. "And Clara, did you plan this together?" "Listen to me," Clara urged, scrambling to her feet. "We did what we had to. You're all caught in a game much bigger than you know." Confusion morphed into a tightening knot in Margaret's chest. The lies, the betrayals, the uncertainty, all swirling like a cyclone. The world began to blur, the once secure foundation now a cracked and crumbling facade. "Who are you really?" Margaret cried out, vulnerability intersecting with her rage. Just then, the stranger, who had been rising in the shadows, stepped forward again. "This is just the beginning," he said, the menace in his voice echoing in the wreckage. "The reckoning is coming, and you all will wish you had stayed hidden." With those words, the courtroom door trembled and swung open, revealing shadows lurking just beyond the threshold. Margaret's breath caught, fear coiling in her stomach. Who was coming? How far had they gone? The shifting loyalties, the hidden pasts, everything was poised to unravel, plunging them into a darkness none of them could escape. All she could do was brace herself for the storm that was about to engulf them all. The air crackled with tension, the shadows closing in. Clara's gaze locked on the stranger, her stance defensive. "You don't understand the danger you're in," she shouted, defiance and fear mingling in her eyes. Margaret felt the weight of all their gazes, each one questioning her very existence. The chaos around her faded for a fragile moment. Then that moment shattered with another loud crash. The door swung open again, revealing a figure shrouded in smoke. "Enough games!" a voice boomed, slicing through the panic like a knife. A tall woman stepped forward, her hair cascading like dark waves. Margaret's heart dropped as recognition hit her like a punch. It was her childhood friend, Hannah. But Hannah should have been dead. "No!" Margaret gasped, trembling hands covering her mouth. "How are you?" "I'm alive because of this!" Hannah shouted, brandishing a sleek tablet. The screen glimmered with lines of code, diagrams, and a web of connections that made Margaret's head spin. "I discovered what they've been hiding, what they tried to bury." Before anyone could speak, Hannah pressed a button on the tablet. The images on the screen spread like wildfire, plastering the walls around them. Destruction, betrayal, faces she knew twisted into malicious grins. "This is the setup," she declared, breathless. "Everything you believe is a lie." The room fell silent, the echoes of gasps amplifying the weight of disbelief. Maggie's world flipped again. "You were supposed to be gone. How did you survive?" "I faked it," Hannah admitted, her voice cracking as old memories resurfaced. "Just like your dad. They were coming for us all. But I've been watching, waiting for the right moment." Margaret's heart raced joy struggling against confusion. "Why didn't you come back sooner?" "Because I was gathering evidence. I wanted to expose them, the real threat hiding in plain sight." Hannah's eyes glinted with challenge. "But it's worse than you know." Suddenly, the lights flickered, shadows danced, and the unknown man in the suit paled, backing away slowly. "No, it can't be," he croaked, eyes wide with terror. "What cannot be?" Clara's voice trembled, a sharp edge of anxiety slicing through her bravado. Hannah's finger hovered over the screen. "You'll see." She pressed another button, and a holographic image projected into the air, swirling with data. It showed dozens of names, lawyers, military officials, even some politicians. Every person connected to the web of lies. They've been rewriting history, erasing anyone who got in their way. "But what does this have to do with us?" Samuel asked, voice shaking. "This," Hannah pointed at a flickering name that stood out like a sore thumb. "Margaret, your real father was the mastermind behind everything. He set this whole game in motion." The courtroom erupted into chaos. Margaret's heart raced, and her stomach twisted painfully. "No, that can't be true." She could barely breathe, the walls closing in. "He loved me!" "Loved you?" Hannah spat, eyes wide with intensity. "He needed you, Margaret. You were part of his plan all along." The reality crashed down like a building, shaking her core. "You're lying!" she screamed, desperation coating her voice. "I wish I were," Hannah replied, sorrow painting her features. "But the blood ties go deeper than you think. The truth is, you aren't just his daughter. You're a pawn in a game that could redefine everything." Margaret staggered, a wave of nausea washing over her. Samuel's look turned from shock to fear. "What does that mean for us? For any of us?" he questioned, voice shaking, as if he was losing grip on reality. With urgency, Hannah stepped closer, her demeanor shifting. "They'll come for you. It's not just about survival anymore. They want control, and you're at the heart of it." Margaret's chest tightened as the pieces began to align, forming a terrifying puzzle. The relationships, everything she built her life upon, were on a precipice. But before she could digest this new reality, a low rumble echoed from the distance, growing louder. "Get out! They're here!" Hannah shouted, movement erupting in the room, hands pulling at each other frantically, fear tangible in the air. The fear struck as a newfound terror filled the crowd. Time around them suspended, fragments of shattered trust and revelations colliding at once. "We have to leave now!" Clara screamed, eyes wide with urgency. But before anyone could react, the earth shifted. The ground rumbled violently, sending cracks ripping through the floorboards. Dust clouded the air. Screams ignited the chaos, and in that moment, as the world around them trembled, everything they believed was torn apart. Margaret grasped Samuel's hand, heart racing wildly. "What next?" she gasped, unsure of anything anymore. And as the walls began to crumble down, she felt the endless void of uncertainty yawning before them, eager to swallow them whole. The ground quaked beneath them, panic spreading like wildfire through the courtroom. Margaret tried to pull herself together, heart pounding, breath quickening. Samuel's grip tightened on her hand, eyes wide with terror. "What now?" he shouted, fraught with fear as he scanned the quickly shifting atmosphere. "Run," Clara urged, but before anyone could move, the ominous hum from the device escalated into a deafening roar. A violent wave of energy surged, blasting debris into the air. Margaret shielded her face as dust and particles swirled, choking the room. "Help!" shouted a voice from the crowd, barely heard over the cacophony of chaos. Someone was trapped under the wreckage, a cry of panic that struck like a knife. "I can't!" "Leave them!" Eleanor cried, her voice trembling as she darted towards the sound. "We have to help!" "No! Get back!" Clara screamed, desperation lacing her words. "It's too dangerous." But Margaret's eyes locked onto the figure, trying to crawl free. She turned to Samuel and Hannah. "We can't just leave them!" The room felt like it was folding in on itself. She could see the fear in their faces, but she couldn't abandon someone in need. She ran forward, heart in her throat, and reached for the debris blocking the path. It felt like the world was closing in, the air thick and suffocating. Suddenly, Clara lunged after her, pulling her back. "Margaret, stop! Don't you get it? This is what they want." "To divide us." As they struggled, a loud crack echoed through the room. The ceiling trembled, and then a blinding flash erupted, engulfing everything in a white light. Light and sound swirled together in an inferno of chaos. When the light dimmed, Margaret blinked, stunned. The unexpected silence was deafening. She looked around, heart racing. The room had changed completely. The walls, once a courtroom, were now bare and cold, painted in dull gray. People were gone. Where had they all gone? A surreal quiet only amplified her pulse. "Guys," she whispered, dread sinking like lead in her stomach. "Samuel? Eleanor?" Panic set in as she took a step, the echo of her footfall sounding mournful. "That wasn't supposed to happen," Clara murmured, her voice distant. Margaret turned. "What do you mean?" But Clara's expression shifted from fear to something more complicated. Guilt. The pieces started to click into place. "You weren't meant to know, not this soon." "What? Know what?" Margaret pressed, an icy grip of realization clenching around her heart. "Everything we've been through, everything we've seen, it was orchestrated. You were meant to be protected from the truth." Clara's voice trembled, revealing layers of secrets Margaret never fathomed. "Protecting me?" Margaret jabbed, even as her hands shook. "By hiding the truth?" Suddenly, Clara dropped to her knees, her voice twisting in agony. "I had to. They would have killed you. You had to stay safe. I didn't think it'd come to this." "What are you saying?" Margaret's breath faltered. Dread pulling her deeper into the darkness of betrayal. What truth? Just then a shadow stretched across the floor, and Margaret turned, feeling the air shift. A tall figure emerged from the corridor beyond the rubble, a man clad in formal attire. The echoes of authority radiated from him like a dark shield. "You're both in deeper than you realize," he said, voice smooth like ice. "You've been playing a risky game, Clara, and now it's time for the real players to step in." "What are you talking about?" Margaret's voice rose, anger boiling in tandem with confusion. "Your father, Margaret, the one you thought was just a pawn? He was the king." He stepped closer, a mask of calm. "And now you've awakened players who have been dormant for far too long." Margaret's mind raced. She felt her footing slip. "No, it can't be true." "Yes, it is." The man's smile was sinister. "And I'm here to collect what's owed." Without warning, the ground beneath her trembled again. But this time, the floor split wide open, revealing an abyss. Screams resounded from nowhere, engulfing her. "No!" Margaret shouted, feeling herself being pulled toward the dark void. Samuel's voice echoed faintly, a lifeline in the chaos. "Margaret!" And then, everything vanished. The courtroom, the chaos, all gone in a blink, leaving only a chilling emptiness swirling in the night. This was only the beginning. The reality of who she had become hit harder than the fall. The stakes were higher than she could ever imagine, and every choice she made henceforth would lead them into uncharted territories. What awaited her in that abyss? Would the bond they had forged withstand this unraveling? She felt a shiver of dread run through her. Everything was shifting. It was all just the beginning. The world spun into darkness, and Margaret's heart raced as she gripped Samuel's hand tightly. They were in free fall, tumbling into an unknown abyss, the weight of secrets and betrayals thrumming in her chest. But just as doubt began to settle in, a bright light pierced through the void. Suddenly, the sensation of falling stopped. They landed on solid ground, panting and disoriented. Blinking, they found themselves in an echoing chamber. The walls were slick and cold, glimmering with dark metallic surfaces. Strong blue lights cast strange shadows, making it hard to see clearly. What is this place? Samuel gasped, his voice echoing off the walls. The air felt electric, humming around them, as if charged with a strange energy. I don't know, Margaret murmured. Panic fluttered inside her. Are we safe? Clara stood closer, her face pale, eyes scanning the chamber. It's a hideout. We must be under the city, she said, a tremor in her voice. But how did we? Before she could finish, a low humming noise echoed throughout the chamber, vibrating the floor beneath their feet. Shadows shifted, and suddenly, a large panel slid open, revealing a high-tech control room. Monitors blinked to life, displaying images of them. There they were, both frantic and lost, and behind them, a vivid feed of the courtroom chaos. Look! Margaret pointed to the screens, heart dropping as she spotted the panicked crowd, Eleanor, Tom, and the stranger still inside the courtroom. They're still up there! Focus, Margaret! Clara snapped, urgency twisting her features. We need to get out before they come looking for us. And just as panic edged its way back in, the lights flickered out, plunging them into darkness. A loud crash came from somewhere below, echoing up through the chamber like thunder. Stay close, Samuel shouted, instinctively pulling Margaret toward him, fear igniting the space between them. Then, a piercing sound sliced through the darkness. The unmistakable click of a gun being cocked. Margaret's heart dropped. What was that? She whispered, eyes wide. Who's there? Clara shouted into the shadows, voice shaking. A smooth voice emerged from the murky darkness, mocking and cool. Oh, Clara, always the dramatic one, the voice mused, laced with an edge of amusement. Did you think you could escape so easily? The figure stepped into the faint light, revealing a sharp-dressed woman with icy blue eyes, a cruel smile fixed on her lips. Margaret felt her breath hitch. Charlotte? She whispered in disbelief. Charlotte, the enigma from her childhood. The sister she never knew she had. You're alive? But, she stammered, mind racing with confusion and horror. You were supposed to be gone. Oh, sweet sister, Charlotte purred, reveling in the moment. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you play dead. I've been watching from the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal myself. And here we are. The implications hung thick in the air. Margaret's heart froze as revelations snowballed around her. You've been pulling the strings? Samuel stammered, disbelief pouring from his voice. Charlotte laughed, sharp and cruel, echoing around the chamber. Not just any strings. The ones connected to you, Margaret. You, my dear, are the key to it all. What are you saying? Margaret clenched her fists, dread spreading through her. I won't be a part of whatever twisted game you're playing. Oh, but you already are. Charlotte stepped closer, her gun gleaming coldly in. The light. You have no idea how deep our family's legacy runs, and I've come to collect what's rightfully mine. As the pieces began to fit, cracks in their world expanded beneath them. Everything Margaret thought she knew shattered with each word. Could she even trust the people who stood beside her? "Why would you do this?" she shouted, a lump choking her throat, fighting despair. "To your own family?" "Family," Charlotte chuckled darkly, "is all about power, dear sister, and I plan to take it back." Margaret's pulse quickened, a terrifying realization dawning. Charlotte had been playing this game from the very beginning. And what about Clara? The betrayal stung like icy metal digging into her heart. As doubt clouded her mind and adrenaline surged, memories of laughter and war flickered like dying embers. Charlotte's intentions reshaped the entire narrative, leaving trust floating in the air like dust. Margaret felt the ground shift beneath her yet again. "Step back, Charlotte! You don't have to do this!" Clara cried, eyes wide with fear. But Charlotte only grinned wider, the gun steady. The air thickened, filled with the tension of unresolved chaos. The pieces of the past fluttered around them like fallen leaves, twisting into a vortex of impending doom. Margaret, feeling like a marionette on strings she had never seen, took one shaky breath. "We're not done here yet," she whispered, searching for a glimmer of hope amid the shadows. And just as she found courage to stand her ground, a deafening alarm blared, drowning out their voices, echoing into the void. They were running out of time, and as everything spun into chaos yet again, the defining moment of choice loomed. What would happen next? Would they succumb to the darkness, or would they fight back against the very fabric of their family's legacy? The air hummed with tension as Charlotte stood, gun leveled, a smirk painted on her face. "You really think you can stop this, Margaret?" she taunted, eyes gleaming with malice. "You have no idea how deep this runs." Margaret felt a surge of adrenaline claw at her chest. She couldn't falter now. "You may think you're in control, but we're not going down without a fight." "Enough!" Clara interjected, desperation lacing her voice. "Charlotte, this isn't you. You're our sister." The word hung heavy in the air. To have a sister she didn't know, it shook her foundations. But Charlotte only laughed, dark and hollow. "Sister? This family is broken beyond repair. We're only bound by blood, and I intend to use that to my advantage." With a sudden movement, Samuel stepped between Margaret and Charlotte. "You need to put that gun down," he said, voice firm, despite the tremor in his hands. "This doesn't have to end in bloodshed." "Stay out of this, Samuel," Charlotte shouted, gun unwavering. "You're just a pawn in this game, and you're about to be sacrificed." Before a shot could ring out, the chamber flared with blinding light, and the monitors flickered violently. The image of the courtroom chaos exploded across the screens. Eleanor, Tom, and everyone still trapped above, their faces twisted in fear. Margaret's heart sank at the sight, pain gripping her. "We can't let them suffer because of this," she cried, determination coursing through her veins. "I won't let you." With sudden courage, she lunged toward Charlotte, throwing herself past Samuel and crashing into Charlotte's side. The gun went off, but it missed. A deafening roar filled the room, spiraling into a cacophony of chaos as screens shattered and sparks flew. As the confusion erupted, Clara seized Charlotte's wrist, twisting the gun to the ground with a strength born of desperation. "Stop this madness, Charlotte! You don't want to do this?" Charlotte's eyes simmered, rage and fear battling within her. The gun clattered away, but her fury erupted. "You all think you can just walk away from this? You can't undo what's done." "We don't have to," Margaret replied, breathless, stepping forward. "We can change the outcome. We can rewrite our story." In that moment, a flicker of hope ignited in Charlotte's cold gaze. "Rewrite it?" she echoed, uncertainty creeping into her voice. The tension shifted as the monitors flickered back on, revealing the families caught in the aftermath of their tangled past. A sense of unity formed like a sliver of light pushing through the storm. "We've been through enough," Samuel said softly. "Let's end the cycle of pain." Margaret stepped closer to her sister, vulnerability slicing through the darkness. "We're family. We can be more than this." Charlotte's facade cracked, tears glistening in her eyes. "But they will never let us go. They'll come for us," she whispered, fear scraping at her resolve. "We'll face them together," Clara promised, laying her hand gently on Charlotte's shoulder. "We're stronger united. We can stop this." After a long moment, Charlotte nodded slowly, the burden of her choices weighing heavily on her. "Okay," she said, her voice trembling. "Let's fight back." As they turned to face the screens together, Margaret's heart swelled with hope. They may have started as pawns in a twisted game, but now they were the players. But just then, a loud hiss filled the air, and a figure emerged from the shadows, an ominous presence laughing softly, eyes narrowed. The figure stepped forward, revealing themselves as Jacob, his smirk dangerous. "You think you're free?" he said, voice dripping with contempt. "This game is far from over." The chamber trembled, a reminder that their battle was just beginning. The shadows loomed larger, and as they faced the chaos ahead, Margaret felt her heart race with renewed conviction. "Let's not wait for the next move," she said, determination surging. "We need to take control of our destiny together." As they locked hands, united, the world around them distorted, blurring into a new reality filled with uncertainty, yet flickering with hope. They'd write their history from here on out. And as that glimmer of hope filled the air, the journey was only just beginning. Now, as this thrilling chapter closes, you must subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to keep the algorithm moving and showing you the stories you love. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this intense ending. It's your time to shine. And don't wait one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know what's coming next. I can't stress enough, don't leave the channel just yet. Click on the new exciting story popping up on your screen and dive into yet another incredible adventure. You won't regret it.